I'm able to provide the following clarification. The general principle is that all British passport holders remain welcome to travel to the US. We have received assurances from the US Embassy that this executive order will make no difference to any British passport holder, irrespective of their country of birth or whether they hold another passport. In any case, the executive order is a temporary measure intended to last for 90 days until the US system has added new security precautions. This is, of course, a highly controversial policy which has caused unease, and I repeat that this is not an approach that this government would take. But let me conclude by reminding the House of the vital importance of this country's alliance with the United States in defence, intelligence, which I'm sure they appreciate and understand on that side. On defence, intelligence and security, we work together more closely than any other two countries in the world. That relationship is overwhelmingly to our benefit. But we also repeat our resolve to work alongside the Trump administration in the mutual interest of both our countries. And I commend this statement to the House.
Emily Thornberry.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying this. I'm sure that the whole House will want to join me in expressing our sorrow at last night's gun attack on a Canadian mosque, which left 6 dead and 8 injured. They were all victims of hate, and we are all under a duty to stand up to hate, whenever and in whatever form it appears. I thank this Foreign Secretary for advance sight of his statement. I have to say, I thought there were a few pages missing, but apparently not. And so I hope that, Mr. Speaker, you will allow me to ask some questions on details that were missing from this statement, and also to ask about its timing. First, on the detail. As the Secretary of State knows, there are thousands of people in Britain who live here on a permanent basis, but who are also nationals of the 7 listed countries, and they have no dual citizenship. Many of them are here with indefinite leave to remain, having fled persecution or war. Can the Secretary of State confirm, based on what he has said today, that these thousands of British residents are now barred from travelling to the United States? People like Dr. Hamaseh Taheri, an Iranian national living and working in Glasgow, who on Friday was told that she wasn't allowed to fly home from Costa Rica because she was going to need to change planes in New York. Similarly, if a Somali national with a temporary US visa is currently in the UK visiting their family, can he confirm that they cannot now return to the US under these rules? I hope he can clarify these points. And turning now to the timing of this announcement, this order was issued at 9:45 on Friday UK time. It then took Number 10 until midnight on Saturday, a full 27 hours later, to say that they would consider the impact on UK nationals. It then took the Prime Minister until Sunday morning to tell the Foreign Secretary to telephone the White House, and it took him until midday on Sunday to call the travel ban divisive and wrong. That is 38 hours. 38 hours, Mr. Speaker, to have the courage to say what everyone else was saying on Friday night. And finally, 46 hours after the executive order, we got clarification that UK nationals and dual nationals would not be affected. If this was because the wheels in Washington were slow to turn, it might be understandable. But look at Canada. They were immediately in touch on Saturday with their American counterparts, and by that evening, they had secured the travel rights of Canadian nationals a full 17 hours before we had secured ours. So can I ask the Secretary of State, Canada is supposed to be 5 hours behind the UK, so why were they a day ahead of us when it came to resolving this issue? And finally, a point on timing. The order was signed barely an hour or two after the Prime Minister had left the White House. Can he tell us, in their discussions about terrorism and security, was this imminent order mentioned? Because I don't know, Mr. Speaker, what's worse, that the President would have such little respect for the Prime Minister that he wouldn't think of telling her, or that he did, and that she didn't think it sounded wrong. If it was the first, it would hardly be a surprise. But if it was the latter, then we really do have a problem, Mr. Speaker. Because when it comes to human rights, when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to torture and the treatment of minorities, President Trump is already descending down a very dangerous slope. And when that happens, we need a Prime Minister who is prepared to tell him to stop, not one who simply proffers her hand and silently helps him along.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I listened very carefully to the most substantial point the Right Honourable Lady had to make was about a particular case of a Glaswegian doctor, and I appreciate that there will be all sorts of cases, particularly difficult cases, heartbreaking cases, people who experience a lot of frustration as a result of this measure, which I repeat because perhaps members didn't follow it first time. This is not the policy of Her Majesty's government. This is a policy that is being promoted elsewhere. What we will do is make sure that we, all our consular network, all our diplomatic network is put at the service of people who are finding difficulties as a result of these measures. But as I say, because of the energetic action of this government, we now have, by the Prime Minister, by my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, we have an exemption for UK passport holders, whether dual nationals or otherwise. And I think most fair-minded people would say that that actually showed the advantages of working closely with the Trump administration, the advantages of having a relationship that enables us to get our point across, and to get the vital protections for UK passport holders that they need. And I may say that the approach taken by the party opposite, pointlessly to demonise the Trump administration, would have achieved the very opposite.